I looked inside my student's backpack and nearly passed out. I was fortunate enough to teach a class where my niece happened to be one of the students. She was quiet, respectful, and kept to herself. Unfortunately, there was another boy in the room who seemed determined to make every girl uncomfortable. He constantly flirted, whispered inappropriate comments, and tried to get attention any way he could. After multiple warnings and several meetings with administration, he was reassigned to sit right at the front so I could keep an eye on him. Most days, he sulked and complained, but at least the behavior slowed down. One morning, as the bell rang, he approached me and practically begged to sit in the back just for the day. He promised he'd behave and swore he just wanted to be away from everyone. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I thought maybe a change would calm him down. I didn't realize how badly I would regret that decision. Midway through a reading assignment, the room fell silent. Papers rustled, pencils scribbled, and I finally felt like we were having a peaceful morning. Then I heard faint whispering from the back of the room. I lifted my head and looked toward the final row. The boy had opened his backpack and was quietly showing something to another student. At first glance, it looked like some kind of weapon. It took my brain a moment to catch up. I blinked, trying to convince myself I was seeing it wrong. It couldn't be real. Not here. Not in my classroom. But I needed to be absolutely sure. I slowly stood up so I could walk toward a student who had raised her hand with a question. As I got closer to the back, I caught a clearer glimpse inside his bag. My stomach dropped. What I saw was not a toy, not a replica, not a prank. It was unmistakably real. In one moment, every instinct I had as a teacher, an adult, and a family member of a student in the room kicked in. I could actually feel sweat forming on my forehead like someone had turned on a faucet. My hands shook so violently that I could barely hold my phone steady. I dialed emergency services, but the room was too silent for me to say anything. If I spoke, every student would hear me. If the boy realized what I'd seen, I had no idea what he would do. Walking out of the room wasn't an option. I had 25 students in my care, including my niece. I needed help and I needed it fast. So I secretly texted our assistant principal 3 terrifying words in all caps, weapon in class, and then I waited. Every second felt like a minute. Every minute felt like an hour. I stared at my niece and tried to keep my breathing calm so no one could sense what was happening. When I got no reply, I knew I couldn't keep sitting there silently. I called my niece up to my desk, pretending to check her assignment. As she stood next to me, I quietly unfolded a sticky note and slid it under a paper so she could read it without anyone else seeing. It said, "Asked to use the bathroom. Find the assistant principal. Tell him to check his phone. Leave the building immediately." Her eyes widened slightly, but she nodded without asking questions. She politely raised her hand, asked to go to the restroom, and slipped out of the room. She moved so calmly that nobody suspected anything. Then came the worst part, waiting again. Every rustle, every cough, every shifting chair made my nerves spike. I kept teaching with a smile that probably looked unnatural, desperately pretending everything was normal. 5 of the longest minutes of my life passed before there was a soft knock at the door. The assistant principal entered casually, smiling and chatting with the students like he was just doing a routine classroom visit. I could tell a few students sensed something strange, but no one said a word. After a minute or two, he looked at the boy and said in the most relaxed tone I'd ever heard, "Hey, can I talk to you outside for a moment?" The boy stood up slowly, slipped on his backpack, and walked down the row. As he passed my niece's empty desk, I actually felt my pulse in my throat. My mind kept imagining the worst possible endings. But as soon as the assistant principal had him in the hallway, security swarmed. They took him to the ground, restrained him, and removed the backpack. Later that day, I learned he was planning to confront another student during lunch. No one knows exactly how far it would have gone, but the timing makes my blood run cold.